Hello, my name's Helen Drew and welcome to today's watercolour project. So you can see in front of you the project we're going to do today. These are some beautiful orange pansies which are in my garden at the moment. So if you look at the composition, we've got three main pansies and some scattered little ones to the side. And if you look at the colours, I'm going to tell you the colours for this project. They are bright, so you are going to need some quite bright colours with this, so you guarantee if you use the lemon yellow and a really bright red, so this red is actually permanent red. You can use cadmium red, anything that's a really bright red without any blue in it. If you use cadmium red, do be careful because cadmium is poisonous, so don't wash your paintbrush in your coffee. So let's move that to one side. I'll tell you about the rest of the colours in a minute when we talked about the drawing. Okay, so what we've got are the three. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the drawing on my site, helendrew.com, for you, just in case you don't want to draw them, and you can then download it and copy it. So for drawing we need a soft pencil. So if you've bought pencils that come in a box with lots of pencils, put aside your H pencils. You really don't want to be using those. H pencils are very hard, and what will happen is on your watercolour paper they will make a groove and then the paint will go into the groove. Of course that could be a technique we can use, but we don't want it at the moment. So if we draw the very roughly pansies, I'm just going to draw one for you. Okay, so pansies actually have 5 petals. So there's a large one at the bottom and the 2 small ones on either side, and then they're not always regular, so I'm going to draw one here and another one back there. So I hope that says pansy to you. And I'm not going to draw all the pansies. As I say, you'll be able to download the picture if you want, but if I remove this now and put it the right way up, I'm not sure if you can actually see the pansies on the video or not, but when I look at the sketch, the pansies are quite, the pencil lines are quite dark. So as I haven't got my rubber with me, I'm just going to pause the video for a moment while I find a rubber. So you can see the sketch I've already done here, and you can see some of the lines are quite dark. The problem with your pencil lines is once you've painted your watercolour over the top of it, if you can still see them, you won't be able to erase them. So I'm really just going to erase a few of these with my eraser. So I can still see them, but they're not so strong. It's not very clean. Okay, that'll do. Right, let's talk about the rest of the colours that we're going to use. So we've already talked about the bright red and the lemon yellow. Any bright yellow will do. Try and avoid the yellow ochres and the raw siennas. They will make your flowers very dull. Now I've cheated a bit today and I've used this green. This is sap green, a mid green. And then, as I really like to have a red, a yellow and a blue, I'm going to add in some ultramarine. So let's put them in there. Palette. And at this stage you will need a piece of scrap paper so we can test the colours. If you're not not sure of your colours, don't put too much paint into your palette, because if you then say, oh no, I don't like that, you've then got to clean it out again. And you can arrange your palette how you want, but you will notice I've put the flower colours at one end and the leaf colours at the other end. So we take a piece of scrap paper and we'll put some red. And that's the sort of bright orange I'm going to want for my pansies. And I take the blue and I take this green, and that's the sort of colour I'm going to want for my leaves. But we could actually, if we wanted a different green, we could use that one as well. You can see how the lemon yellow and the ultramarine makes a slightly dirtier green than the green that's come from the tube. At this stage, look at your colours and say, do I like the colours? If you don't like the colours, when you finish your painting, you probably won't like the painting. So I'll put the colours on one side, and still got some strange smudgy bits on my So what we're going to do is we're going to mix up we're going to mix up a pale orange. So if we take the water and we put water in here, just water, and we mix in some yellow. The reason I'm doing this is because we'll need quite a lot. I'm going to paint the flowers first, and I would say that the flowers take up a bit more than a third, certainly of the painting, not quite half. So I want to make sure I've got enough paint mixed up, because always mix up enough paint. If you don't mix enough paint up and you have to go back and mix more, don't forget that your paper is drying, and then when you add your second lot of paint, you might get effects that you don't expect. Okay, let's see. Too red, a bit more yellow. Just a point here. If you find that your brush looks like this, be careful, because if you've got solid paint in your brush and you paint it onto the painting, you've obviously got a solid colour. It will be much darker than you expect. So at this stage I want to make sure it's all well mixed in. Still got paint on my brush. That's about what I... Don't forget your watercolour will always dry lighter. So I hope you can see that. I've got quite a lot of paint mixed up there, and now I'm just going to get something to tip my board up. And I'm going to start here. I'm going to paint really roughly. Don't worry if you go over the edges. Except I want a white bit that I'm going to leave in here. So you saw what I did then. If you find that your paint is running into an area that you want to leave white, just take your paper tissue, make it into a little point and dab it out. So we've got our 3 flowers. You can add a little bit of darker tone in there if you wish, and then what I'm going to do is while it's drying there, I want the leaves to blend in a little bit, so I'm just going to mix up a pale green. Too much yellow. Sometimes it takes a while to get your paintbrush clean, and usually I have 2 pots of water, so one's for dirty and one's for clean. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to blend that in, and you can see, I hope you can see, the orange is blending in a little bit. That's good. We don't want it all to be too precise. Pale colour, it'll dry paler. And I can still see good. Right, so what I'm going to do now is dry that off, and I'll see you again in a couple of minutes. Great, the painting is now dry, and you'll probably notice that it has dried a little bit lighter, and you'll notice there are parts here where the orange from the flowers is blending into the leaves. That's great. What I'm going to do now is actually get rid of this orange. When I told you to be careful and mix up enough, I've obviously mixed up far too much, so it's a very pale orange, so I'm just going to get rid of that. Because what we want to do now is we want to put a darker orange on there. Now if you look at your composition, I've now got 2 tones. I've got the white, which is tone 1, and I've got this green and the orange. If you half close your eyes, I hope you can see on the video, it blends in, it's all one tone. So this is tone 2. So what we're now going to do is we're going to add tone 3 and 4. And I'm going to start on with the yellow, and if you like you can mix up a couple of these. I usually sort of don't think too much about it and dip in my paintbrush. But okay, so we're going to start with almost pale, almost solid yellow on this part here. Notice how I'm not using the tip of my brush, I'm making the brush so I'm using about half the brush width. And then I'm going to dip into the red, and you'll notice that it's nicely blending in. And paint down to here, but we're going to leave this little white bit in the middle. You can see how now, look, it's blending in. Let the paint move around. Then paint here, and what we're going to do is I'm going to leave a tiny, if you can, little edge between there, and touch halfway along, and so I've got a tiny line there, and then it's touch that one so it's blending in there. And as I come around, it's going to be more orange as it comes around here. So I've got a line here, and as soon as I touch that line, the red is going to blend into that orange. Okay, and that's the sort of effect you want. So far the petals we're painting are all 2 tones. Paint another one here. And it doesn't matter if it dries a little bit there, because I want to have these two bits here, so I'm going to actually start on this one over here. Red. The objective is what we don't want to have is the same colour all the way over the petal. So make sure that as you're painting, you can see how, I hope you can see, it's more orange here and it gets redder as it comes across. So what we don't want is a petal that just looks like this. And that's all one colour. And that's a little bit boring. So as I move on, I can paint. You can leave a tiny line if you like, because we've already painted the background colour, so it's not white any longer. I'm just looking to see how this one. Okay, so what I want to do is, I've got a petal here and it's folded over, you know when they curl slightly. So I've got an area here that's going to curl over, and I'm going to leave that colour. Yellow. A little bit of a strong line there, so let's sort of blend in a little bit of yellow, so just blend in places. Perfect. And the same here. And we have this bit. I'm actually going to turn this round because I want to leave this bit. So that's the bit that's bending over. Might need to make it a little bit light, a little bit darker at some stage. It's a little bit light, but we can fix that in a moment. Go back to this one, leaving the white bit in the middle. Right, so I expect you've got the idea now. So what I'm going to do is pause the video for a while and finish off the flowers, and I'll get back to you when the flowers are finished. Okay, I've finished off the flowers, and the painting is now dry and completely dry. You can tell if your painting is completely dry when your paper is flat. So your paper is wet, it's got a shine on it. Gradually the shine goes, but the paper is still damp, and you can still get unpredictable effects when the paper is damp. So your paper should be completely flat. Now we're going to look at the leaves, and I'm going to start with this section here. You might want to go to a smaller brush at this. So I want this flower to be the focal point, so this is why I'm painting the darkest colours around here. We have some stalks here. Look at the leaves. The leaves have got like little ridges in there, so it's quite nice if you can have some of these shapes. It says pansies. If you're not sure about the shapes you're painting, paint them fairly light at first, and then you can always put some more darker paint on top of them. Don't overthink your leaves, as long as it's got the sort of shapes that will be obvious. Now you'll notice I'm doing the stalks, and I'm not just doing the stalks coming off the bottom of the paper like this. So make sure they wave around a little bit. Take a bit of artistic license. Notice I'm changing my colour. I'm going to paint this one, I'm going to leave a white heart down the middle. You see how here they've got this nice flow of one colour into the next one. Right, again I'm going to dry that off because it's time to think about it. It's time to put it at a distance now and think about it. So I'm going to dry it off now. And so it's dry now, and now is the moment where you put it at a distance and look at it. So you can, because now we have to make decisions about, is it finished, do we need to add more, which bits do we need to change. So I can already see that it'd be nice to have a bit of orange to yellow to make that petal a bit bright, and that's helped a bit. And then I would like to have another bit there. So this yellow is quite opaque, so we can paint it on over the top. It's working well. I also need to blend this little bit in here. This is, as it's folded over, it's just a little bit too dark, so I'm painting that a little bit. That's a bit better. It doesn't need to be quite so white. And I think probably for me it needs a little bit more green in this corner here. You'll notice I've gone to a smaller brush. I usually only go to a smaller brush right at the end. I try and paint as much as I can with the big brush. It gives you a much more sense of freedom. Now, temptation is to draw something going off at the corner. Don't. I can draw something going up there. Great. So I'm going to mix up a really dark colour, so the green and the blue, and then I'm going to just add this bit there, and add this bit there. Okay, and you see how that really brings it out. And like that. And the last thing the last technique I want to show you is with these water-soluble crayons. And what we're going to do now is we're going to just put some top, and they go very well with the envelopes. You can even, as they're water soluble, add a little darker bit. Good, and we can do this on some of the leaves as well. Darker. So I think that's it for the moment. So what I'm going to do is dry it off completely, then I'll frame it for you. And here you see our finished painting. I've put the frame round it. We can think about it. Do we need to add something else? We could remove bits of paint if we needed to, but there you are, that's today's project. So please give it a try, and please send me your paintings, and we can talk about them. And as I say, if you want to download the sketch, it's on the website, and keep painting. Thank you.